This is video 3 in my series on garden preparation techniques. In the next video, we're going to finally be getting into the no-till alternatives that really work and which ones we should use and where. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you how to never, ever create a no-till garden bed. I'm telling you, never. Actually, I'm just kidding. I hate to be dogmatic about these things. You know, there's a time and place for everything. It's just a matter of understanding what our goals are and how we want to reach them. Having been involved with food activism now for a couple of decades, something I've been increasingly concerned about is the amount of us proposing and promoting plastics. It's a trade-off that if we want to do local agriculture in a way that's competitive with industrial ag, these plastics offer us a lot of benefits. You know, one of the things that they really do is they totally nuke the soil biology, which frees up a lot of nutrients for really rapid plant growth. Using black plastic mulches, for example, is just usually going to get us better short-term productivity than tilling, just pretty much automatically. However, it also tends to come with a lot more requirement for spraying and pest problems, because all of that rapid nitrogen-rich growth is just like candy for all of our pest species. In fact, there's a great study on this with the title something like, plastic agriculture, short-term gains over long-term problems. But then we're going to pay for it long-term. So it's not that I'm saying we should never really do this. You know, I have to put a little bit of a clickbait title on here, huh? But what it really is that we need to consider whether or not those long-term drawbacks are worth the short-term gains we may get. The kinds of plastic no-till I'm talking about, they're really two kinds, or some people really make make a distinction and call it 3 different times. And the one is solarizing with plastics. You can use tarps, you can use clear plastics. There are different ways that people do it. Use of plastic mulches, plastic sheets, the landscape fabrics. They have the word fabric in there, which makes it sound like they're made out of granola and hemp. But there are natural fabric alternatives for landscape fabrics, but they tend to biodegrade really easily unless they're loaded down with chemicals to keep them from decomposing, which kind of defeats the whole purpose. Then the other problem with them is that they tend to not be economically viable. So first of all, let's look at what our goals are. Most people are going to be doing no-till for a couple of main reasons. They know that it has a positive impact on soil microbiology, and that tilling has a negative impact. So if they stop tilling and start doing no-till, you're going to have more microbial diversity. That's going to mean reduced pest pressure, reduced disease pressure in the garden, better consistent fertility for their crops, so they're going to have to be doing less fertility maintenance. So there are a huge bunch of benefits. Most no-till systems will also dramatically decrease erosion. They're going to increase soil organic matter, helping to fight climate change, and they're going to increase water infiltration and decrease runoff. The problem is, if those are the reasons why we're doing no-till, it turns out that doing plastic no-till systems, like the ones I just mentioned, are actually going to be worse than tilling almost all the time. So, for example, when we do tilling, we know that that's going to have total impact in most studies. I've been looking at a lot of studies, and I've been sharing a lot of these through our social media and blog at Lily House, that tilling is going to have a decrease in impact in decreasing soil microbial biology and diversity in biomass by 20%, usually at the most. But then the other thing is, a lot of that is going to be damaged fungi. That is a very important thing to keep in mind with what we're trying to crop. Because if we're trying to crop in an annual system anyway, it's actually the bacterial microdiversity that's going to be more important than the fungi. However, it has very little impact on bacteria, whereas the impact of even just solarizing and tarping on bacteria is, quote, drastic in a few studies. So in that case, the total impact from tarping and just solarizing, even for a short period of time, is going to be 50% or more reduction in biomass and biodiversity of microbes in the system. That's huge. In addition to that, there have been a lot of studies showing negative impacts on insects and worm populations. On top of that, there are studies showing that almost in all cases using plastic culture, tarping, pretty dramatically increase water runoff, which makes sense. So if our goals are to be good stewards of our soil or the water, then we're probably better off tilling than using plastic culture, plastic no-till. Back 20, 30 years ago, when we were looking at when agronomists were trying to promote plastics as a way of increasing local agriculture, we didn't really understand things like microplastic contamination yet or phthalates leaching. Now we understand that these are major problems, and out of some Chinese studies, some of these kind of plastic no-till type systems have really been implicated in dangerous levels of phthalates contamination in food. And phthalates are bad. They're being studied as a carcinogen, but causing problems with digestive issues. Probably the biggest thing is that they are hormone disruptors, and so they cause a lot of nasty stuff. They also cause problems in ecosystems, along with microplastics. So agricultural plastics are right now probably in some studies being considered the largest and fastest growing source of plastics pollution in the world, including of the ocean and aquatic ecosystems. So to me, we as local food people shouldn't be promoting the use of agricultural plastics. So this gets back to the thing with me not being dogmatic. I just hate to make solid rules on things. So to me, it's if you're using those things, and we still use some plastics here at Lily House, we're trying to transition away from those, but if you're using those, try to come up with a plan to transition. But if you're not using them, try not to get started in the first place, because they're really attractive systems, and if you're learning how to garden doing plastic culture, you're never going to learn better systems that are going to allow you to do it without plastic. So you're investing your time and your energy into a dead end that's making your food more risky and less healthy, harming your ecosystem and harming your soil. So overall, on the trade-offs here of things, if I have a choice and I have to either till or do plastic no-till, I recommend tilling and digging. It's easier if you're doing digging in that way to transition to a safe system that's no-till. You can always do, like we said in the previous video, and do an initial dig or a till, use that to shape the landscape and the soil so it's harvesting water. It provides you with a lot of opportunities. Then get deep mulch down on that, get it right, and once your crops are in, you deep mulch and you're done. You're never going to have to weed that again. And you've converted that dug system to a no-till system, and you've invested your energy long-term into sustainable infrastructure.